man. And any barmaid can be a star maid if she dances with or without a fan. Hooray for Hollywood! When you're terrific if you're even good. Where anyone at all from Shirley Temple to Amy Semple is equally understood. Go out and try your luck, you may be Donald Duck. Hooray for Hollywood!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Damn You Hollywood. I am Robert Winfrey. I'm your host for this show. Today, this morning, at whatever point in time you happen to be listening to this, because the internet's a wonderful thing in many respects, terrible in others. Seriously terrible in others. Today we will be reviewing Deadpool 2. Because Mark hates me. I mean, that's the upshot of this. No. On a more serious note, setting aside Mark's antipathy towards me, this was the biggest release of the weekend. It was first major release of any note since Infinity War. And today we are going to review it. If you haven't heard our first review, it's 90 minutes of Mark screaming at me for having a different sense of humor. While I point out that there's at least one completely unnecessary scene and two sequences that are just utterly ruined by mediocre CGI. And I have to kind of painstakingly explain that I don't find the humor in Deadpool humorous. But with that out of the way, with that preamble, this one should be significantly more straightforward, in no small part because, well, Mark and I aren't exactly at our best this evening. Mark, would you care to explain to the good people listening, taking time out of their days to, for some reason, listen to us blather on, how you're doing and why you're going to yell at me, but it's not going to be as intense as normal.
I'm not going to yell at you, Robert. I'm simply going to add a movie to our review list. Now,
oh yeah? Which one?
Well, did you happen to get the trailer in front of your Deadpool screening for the Happy Time Murders?
I did not.
Do you know what the Happy Time Murders is?
Nope.
Not
a clue.
The Happy Time Murders is the... oh gosh. I'm tired, so I'm losing English. What's the name of the large woman who's in all the comedies that you hate?
There's a lot of them. Melissa McCarthy?
Yes. Melissa McCarthy stars opposite a team of raunchy Muppets where they are attempting to solve the murder of said Muppets.
Yeah, I will not be seeing that.
Nope. If you can't get through this review appropriately, I'm adding that to the schedule just to torture you.
You can add it all you want. I ain't seeing it.
No. You used your
no, I didn't.
Get out of jail free card for Tomb Raider.
No, I didn't.
Sure you did. You were on vacation.
That's not the same thing.
All right, I don't want to waste I
had a scheduling conflict. That's not the same as me saying, no, I take stances against this on an existential level.
No, you didn't. Look, if my job requires 6 months' notice to take a week off, so do you.
You work for you're subcontracted to the government. Like, no. Look, when private business becomes as bureaucratically bogged down as the government, be that at the state or federal level, I'm just giving up and moving further into the mountains.
All right, it's enough shtick for now. I'm doing fine. It's my second day in a row back on 12-hour shifts. That's not a permanent thing. It's just I had to cover for people who were either on vacation or had called out. So I've gotten a grand total of 8 hours sleep in the past 72 hours. I'm a bit shot.
You might be approaching the point of legally incapacitated. Legally impaired.
I can't tell you how many times I've fucking passed out on the couch while watching TV. Not even resting comfortably, just sitting straight up, looking square at the television, involved in what I'm doing, and I lose time. So before the show, I actually did take a nap because I couldn't take it anymore. I was starting to go crazy. But suffice to say, as I told you offline, I don't have the strength to have a Age of Extinction level argument over fucking Deadpool 2. So let's get to it.
Alrighty. For those of you who have not seen Deadpool 2 and for whom the story actually matters, and really, if you're seeing Deadpool 2 for story, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, look, you see it for the gags. The story is immaterial. But I'm going to now tell you what happens in the course of Deadpool 2, so the contractually mandated spoiler warning has been issued. We open with Deadpool going over how things have been since the previous movie. And it's all... it's okay. Things are kind of going his way. And then he botches a hit because he sucks. And I mean that's kind of all I got out of that. He sucks a little bit at his job. Like, he gets the job done, but it ain't clean or pretty. Because he botches this one, he and his fiancée, girlfriend, I don't know what their specific relationship is apart from them being together. Vanessa winds up dead. We get a protracted, very stupid riff on James Bond intros. And we come back to Deadpool trying to kill himself because severe depression. He blows himself up, but his good buddy Colossus shows up to put the pieces back together, at least somewhat literally in this instance. Try to instill within him a new feeling and a sense of purpose beyond, now that he has lost basically the only human being in the world he cared about. This is partially successful. Deadpool goes on a recruitment mission with Colossus, and this is the only time I will say this character's name, Negasonic Teenage Warhead, because just stupid name. To recruit, what do they call him? Fire Fist? Russell?
Yeah.
Russell. We'll go with Russell. Because he's a little bit out of control. He's been abused because mutants aren't, not everyone likes mutants. And the person who runs the facility he is staying at doesn't like mutants.
Well, can we just call a spade that once again mutants takes the place of an actual group that has been put upon? In this case, it's the gays, and they're trying to cure him of his gayness.
Yeah, sure. It doesn't matter. I mean, it really doesn't matter, but... so anyway, this goes badly, but they stop him from blowing things up. When Deadpool realizes he's been abused, he promptly shoots a few people in public, broadcast live. This goes badly. He and the kid are sent to prison, specific mutant prison, where they have collars attached that deactivate their powers. This is especially bad for Deadpool because, for those of you who might remember, he has horrible, horrible cancer that his healing capability is preventing from killing him. With it deactivated, he is slowly succumbing to, end-stage lung cancer as they're in prison, where he would have died, sad, pathetic, and mostly alone. But for the intervention of Cable. Cable is from the future. Russell, in the future, becomes crazier and murdered his wife and child. Cable decides this won't stand. He comes back in time to kill teenage Russell. And really, after spending like 5 minutes with that character, who could blame him? During the course of his trying to kill Russell, he winds up deactivating the collar on Deadpool. They break out. Sort of. I mean, they inadvertently break out. Deadpool realizes that his new purpose in life, his mission to become a good enough person to be reunited with Vanessa in the afterlife, it's a little bit weird. Not weird. It's not explained entirely well, but he decides that he's going to save this kid from Josh Brolin. He tries to put together a group that he was going to call X-Force. Thankfully, they all die, because X-Force sucked.
Except for Zazie Beetz.
I'm not going to debate that with you because you're just trying to troll me.
Zazie Beetz lives. Oh, are we calling Zazie Beetz by her character name? Domino. Domino lives. But just know that Domino is also known in real life as Zazie Beetz.
Yeah, I'd go by Domino too.
Okay. Anyway, so after Zazie Beetz makes it out of the parachuting incident,
because she's lucky, you see,
she can manipulate luck.
Which to me strikes me just. I'll get into this later. I have a thing about this, but it's not described as her manipulating luck. She describes herself as lucky.
She doesn't have a true understanding of her power. But go on with your plot synopsis. Your terrible, terrible plot synopsis.
Almost as badly written as this movie.
You're badly written.
That would have been the point that I was just making. You literally just agreed with me.
Go on.
Anyway, they are attempting to free Russell from his imprisonment. Russell has already made friends with, guess who? The Juggernaut, because... why not? I mean, really, it's kind of a why not thing. Even though Juggernaut isn't a mutant.
Yes, but he's obviously part of the X-Men canon as one of their rogues gallery. Them and Spider-Man.
Yeah. Just saying, they should have gone with the Blob. That's all I'm saying. They managed to stop Cable from killing the kid, but in the process, Juggernaut is freed, and Juggernaut is, it's not a good thing. So Russell and Juggernaut head back to the conversion school so he can exact his fiery vengeance. Juggernaut tears Deadpool in half. This slows him down because, no legs. Cable decides to team up with the remnants of the X-Force. At this point, it's just Deadpool and Domino. And to try and stop him, Deadpool decides to bargain with Cable, give me a chance to talk the kid out of becoming a murderous psychopath. Because that's a thing. Cable decides, all right, I will give you a chance. If you fail, I'm going to shoot him in the head. So they go. There's mediocre action set pieces. That culminates with Deadpool trying to reach this kid, failing to reach said kid. Cable tries to shoot him because, all right, you had your chance. Deadpool jumps in front of the bullet, thus actually saving the kid. The kid, realizing that that this cancer-ridden maniac was fundamentally insane anyway, and has specifically been trying to die for 80% of this film, now he actually cares. And alters the future. Deadpool dies because he put one of the collars back on to demonstrate his seriousness to the cause. Cable decides that instead of going back to actually spend time with his wife and child, who he just traveled time to save, just manipulated the fabric of reality to save them, instead goes back just a few minutes to wind up preventing Deadpool from dying. And he sticks around. The methodology by which Cable saves him does not actually in any way negate the sacrifice he was prepared to make. The kid still sees this. Still carries the same emotional weight with him. He changes, but Cable is now stranded in 2018, which really does kind of suck in some respects. There's a... Colossus and a couple of the other X-Men deal with the Juggernaut, sort of. I say sort of because they don't actually stop him. You can't, by definition, he cannot be stopped. But they slow him down enough for them to all get out. And life kind of goes back to going forward with Deadpool now believing that he has found a reason to continue forward in existence with the people he has chosen to surround himself with. Then in a sequence that I don't believe is canon, but given the nature of this franchise might be, The X-Men fix Cable's time-traveling device and give it to Deadpool, who subsequently goes back in time, stops Vanessa from dying, stops one of the members of X-Force from dying, but only one, goes into an alternate timeline and kills himself, the version of himself depicted in X-Men Origins Wolverine, and to be fair, we'd all like to forget that movie. Then goes far enough back in time to murder Ryan Reynolds when Ryan Reynolds decided to accept the leading role in the Green Lantern film. All right, that's it. That's what happens. Mark, if you feel I gave anything short shrift there from a narrative perspective, by all means, correct me.
You did.
All right, what did I miss?
Well, you really missed the whole theme of the movie, which is Vanessa. Him and Vanessa decided to have a kid together. She dies. There goes the family that connected him to anything. There went his only human connection, essentially.
Yeah, I brought that up.
Did you? Okay.
Yes.
So the whole driving force of this movie for him is essentially getting that sense of family back, which he says at the beginning of the movie, by the way. But you know, his impetus to take care of Russell, you know, initially is realizing that he had an opportunity to connect with this kid, and you know, because he's depressed essentially about Vanessa dying and him not being able to save her, he sort of blows his chance, you know, and sends Russell on this path of destruction, which then he realizes, you know, in order for him to, you know, to be with Vanessa, I guess in the afterlife is, you know, I guess essentially the way this is shot. He has to redeem both himself and this kid, and in doing so, you know, he creates sort of a surrogate family around him. I actually thought that. You didn't buy into it. I guess that's fine, but I thought that was a stronger. I thought that was a stronger theme in this movie than the themes of the first movie.
Sure, it begins operating under a more emotionally weighty premise,
but I thought they executed that premise very well.
And
so
I would disagree with that, but
we'll
get into that.
Okay, well let me just get into the stuff that I liked in my sort of my overall assessment of the movie. I'm going to give a couple of comparisons to the first one because I actually rewatched that before going to see Deadpool 2. Now, let me first start off with, you really do have to watch Deadpool with the idea that these are meta criticisms, parodies of the superhero genre film. I think when you look at it from that perspective, at least I can enjoy the movie more because I know what this is. To a degree, this is sort of the modern day Mel Brooks, you know, taking on the Marvels and the DC universe pictures. At least that was my interpretation of this.
Yeah, I get that.
Okay, so with that said, the original Deadpool was a very, very small story. It was like the barest thread of a story. It was a revenge tale. But it was done because the whole movie is a character piece. It's really resting on introducing the world to Deadpool. And so you want to give Deadpool the biggest stage to play on, to be himself, because that was the driving force of that movie, was essentially saying to the studios, hey, look, you can have this asshole character who curses and there's blood everywhere and he breaks the fourth wall and he's very meta and people will enjoy it. So you just needed to construct a story around that to really emphasize it, and you will have been successful. And that's, I think, where the first one's success lies. This second one, since you've already established what a Deadpool is with reference to the rest of the world, I thought this one was much more focused on an actual story, a much more fleshed out story. So just follow the current of the story, okay, as I saw it. You have a character who now believes that he cannot be hurt, he cannot die because of his mutant powers, and he sort of embraces that aspect of his character and his abilities. And then, of course, as many characters learn, especially in the second feature of a series, that it isn't so much about you, it's about the people around you who get hurt by you deciding to take on the superhero role. And they dealt with that right at the beginning by killing Vanessa. He makes a critical error, and one of his targets finds him in his home and kills a loved one. Not only does it set up, again, the driving force of the movie, but it's also a trope that you see in most second parts of the superhero genre features. So with that, and I like that. I like the fact that they weren't always winking at the camera, but they were definitely playing on superhero tropes, especially in sequels. And I like the fact that they didn't always call out on that. They just did it, and if you picked it up, great. If you didn't, it doesn't matter. So now she's dead, but she acts as sort of his conscience for the rest of the movie, which I thought was an interesting take and a good use of Morena Baccarin, since you have her in the movie anyway. The idea that he has put all his eggs in her basket, that he cannot live without her, and that's kind of his curse, is that he can't die. I thought that was great. I thought that was a great way to play with his powers. I thought that was a great way to play with his psyche. These two things are in conflict. He wants to die because he no longer has his true love, and he can't because of his powers that he got in the attempt to stay with her in the first place, because he had cancer of the everything. So I thought all that was a good use of what we got out of the previous movie, a good introduction of some new stuff, and a great way to deal with this character. I didn't find any of that meandering. Colossus still has the same goal as he did in the first movie, which was to redeem Deadpool. So he comes along and he puts them back together, and I really thought, I felt like Colossus was kind of a gag character in the first movie. I thought he was much more fleshed out in this one. That this isn't.
All of these are just gag movies.
I think you're seriously undercutting them. No, I'm being serious. It's kind of irritating. I feel like you've kind of taken a step back, turned your nose up at it, and says, no, I'm dismissing this movie out of hand. It's just a series of gags. It's more than that, and that's what I'm trying to get across. Now, you can disagree with that, but at least let me make my argument. Colossus.
So I meant specifically reference to the first movie, not. You have a much stronger case in this one. In the first one, the only character that actually has something approaching an arc is actually Deadpool.
No,
everyone else is a prop.
No, you're right, and that's 100% right. But I explained why that was the case, why I think it had to be the case. That was essentially the first movie was sort of like a marketing event to say to the studios, this can be done. So Colossus is a much more fleshed out character in this one. He's trying to redeem Deadpool, but you can see the mounting frustration, and he's putting all this effort into a relationship and isn't getting anything back. It's just Deadpool not changing, Deadpool kind of being steadfast in his insanity, and Colossus wondering, why am I trying so hard? And then it comes to a breaking point where, after being told ad nauseum, don't kill anyone, especially in public, especially when you don't have to, and he goes and does it anyway, in a show of utter lack of impulse control. And Colossus is like, that's it. This is the worst friendship ever. You're not redeemable, and I wash my hands of you. So, you have the traditional sort of character brought low. Now, here's where I think, again, you used the word meandering, and I thought, no, this was an opportunity for a new character in Deadpool for us to get to know the Fire Fist character, Russell, because he's an important part of the movie, and the movie needs to kind of stop and let us get used to him, let us get to know him. Essentially, since he's going to be redeemed at the end of the movie, you want to get to a point where you're rooting for him, and you're sad that he takes a turn for the negative for at least part of the movie. That's his arc.
You were rooting for him?
You're supposed to be. The way this is written.
I'm asking if you did or not.
I didn't want him to go bad, and I felt bad for the way Deadpool was treating him. All right, moving on. So you have this Russell character who's an abused kid, right? He's he's the stand-in for trying to ungay people. These camps, these places where they try to re-educate folks who are who are gay and try to make them straight. That's essentially what they're doing here. This is also apparently a nod to Mr. Sinister, but that's a little too much comic booky canon type stuff. We'll get to it later.
The name Essex is everything else. Not,
yeah.
But.
So in any case, he's tortured, he's humiliated, he's made to feel like a monster, and all of that sort of bubbles up, and he latches on to Deadpool, as somebody who's in the same boat with him. He too is looking for somebody to love him. Okay? So he latches on to Deadpool, and Deadpool's like, yeah, I'd rather just die. Don't find another person to latch on to, find another person to emulate family for you. It's not going to be me. I'm dead inside, and I'm waiting to die on the outside. And the kid, with this massive, what's the word I'm looking for? Being pushed away by Deadpool really takes, you can see him starting to make that turn. Well, it was like, if nobody loves me, then I'm going to embrace the fact that nobody loves me, and I'm going to become a force of nature, a horrible, negative force of nature. And he teams up with the Juggernaut. The Juggernaut's perfectly willing to use him to get out and cause mayhem, and he needs the Juggernaut because the Juggernaut's big and strong and can tear people in half. Makes sense. So let's talk about the Cable character. And here, I think if there's an underwritten character, it's probably Cable. It's very simply...
It's weird because I think if you could come up with a better impetus for them to just get out of the prison, then Cable shows up and tries to kill Russell. You almost don't need him.
No, you don't. But you had to find something for Cable to do. They needed an action sequence essentially for to sort of introduce Cable. And I think if there's one criticism as I walk through this movie, that's kind of my one criticism of it, is that Cable is just awesome bad guy. He's not. He's action hero. He's not really much of anything besides that. I mean, Josh Brolin has a degree of charisma about him, so that carries it. But other than that, if you ask me to describe Cable's character, I was like, he's a cyborg with a gun. Okay, that's not really a character. So they show him in a halfway dramatic scene of his family being burnt alive, and he gets the bear and he slides back in time on his singular mission to kill Russell. And again, they made it to the point that they made a joke about it, about him being so dark. What is he from the DC universe? Yeah, that's kind of the sum total of Cable for 2/3 of this movie. Is he's just dark, gritty bad guy. The meat of the movie, the stuff to really dig into, is really the relationship between Russell and Deadpool up to this point, and really Deadpool's own internal struggle with whether or not a life without Vanessa is worth living. Which is something I really latched on to, by the way.
For the record, it isn't, but he arrives at an erroneous conclusion.
Okay. You're not Deadpool, though. This character decided that a life without his true love wasn't worth living. This is his story.
Which is the actual correct. I believe that is the correct conclusion to arrive at. He should have just let himself die.
Okay. Well, he comes awfully close. So, moving into the next sequence, you have, again, this is another superhero trope that they played off of. The bad guy's too strong for me. I have to go get other people to help me. Again, this is also then building on the whole family thing. This is my second criticism of the movie, by the way. You use the word meandering once again, and here's where I think you're right, but it's only this sequence, especially because of the way it pays off. They spent way too long with him developing a team of mutants to become X-Force, just to then, within a minute, kill them off. And are the sequences funny the way they killed them off? I might have laughed had I not known it was going to happen, but between Midnight's Edge And
utterly random question. Was
Yeah.
that Brad Pitt who was the Vanisher?
Yes, it was.
I thought it was.
So other than reading the plot synopsis that was leaked on Reddit, against my better judgment, and hearing about the plot leak that was hearing about the plot synopsis that was leaked on Reddit through Midnight's Edge, which if you don't subscribe to that, you really should. It's a YouTube channel. It deals with insider movie news. I might have laughed just at the surprise of it all, but since I saw it coming and I knew it was going to happen, I was like, ugh. Like, why get Terry Crews? Why build up all of these people just to kill them in the next sequence? And then the only one you hang on to is Zazie Beetz. Good old Zazie Beetz. Speaking of which, I liked her. Thought she was fine. Hopefully they flesh her out a little bit more. She seemed to be a lot of charisma and no character.
Can I just say I was desperately waiting for her to be the one who reached Russell?
It would have given her something to do other than make quips.
Yeah. I mean, I really wanted that. Like, Deadpool just fails miserably over and over and over again to actually reach this kid.
Mm-hmm.
She shows up and kind of goes, hey, I came through literally this exact place and suffered exactly what you did.
Yeah, but this wasn't her story to tell.
Coming out of it.
This wasn't her. Here's the problem, and Jesse called it lazy writing. You thought it was lazy writing. Here's where I somewhat agree with you. This once again was the Deadpool show. I mean, this is the Deadpool movie, and the characters sort of exist in this movie to support him and his arc. Now, better written movies have multiple characters having arcs of their own, little mini arcs here and there, or larger arcs, whatever the case may be. As the Ask a Ninja said, everybody in Pirates of the Caribbean had an arc, even the ships and the dogs. So
I just think it would have been the appropriate way to pay off that kind of running gag about the cosmic reason she's there.
Right.
Because they actually bring that up a handful of times. Like, I don't know why I'm here. I just feel like I'm supposed to be, and it turns out that she's the one who can actually save the kid. And I'd also be okay with him arriving at the conclusion that his facilitation of that sequence of events is enough to sustain him going forward.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be. Yeah, and bear in mind, I'm not necessarily accusing the film of being as narcissistically centered around Deadpool as that this is going to make it sound.
But it is.
It could have been. It could have been worse.
Okay.
In that respect. But if the conclusion to his character arc is the realization that it's not all about me, in the sense that I don't have to do everything, I can create enough of a circumstance around me and surround myself with the types of people doing generally the types of things that are better for the world, and still create this nucleus of family. You can still actually utilize that particular trope, but instead of this protracted death sequence with Deadpool, which I guess was funny to some people. The guy behind me thought it was a hoot. Of course, he couldn't stop laughing throughout the entire movie. People, they just ruin films. They ruin the theater experience. But again, you can arrive at a similar conclusion about not only the importance of family in general, but about the importance of even the surrogate family that he has assembled around himself without, oh God, everything's about Deadpool.
Yeah,
And again, a better written movie could do that.
But that's the thing, and I want to really point that out. Just because it could have been better doesn't make it bad. I think your insistence that it's bad is what gives me.
I didn't say bad. About my criticism of this, I said it's not nearly as well written as the first in terms of overall script structure, which I stand by. If you want to talk about overall, or if you stand about overarching themes, sure, this one actually deals with themes beyond, boy, I sure want to kill that guy.
Right.
Fair.
All right, so getting back to Zazie Beetz, I mean, I 100% agree with you. They really, this definitely felt like all we needed. Like, they were sitting in the writers' room and they were like, well, let's not give her too much of anything. We want to save that for an X-Force movie. Let's just put her in there and introduce the character. Anywho, so I thought the character that played her, had plenty of charisma. The actress that plays her had plenty of charisma for days, in my opinion, but not much of a character there. And again, kind of exists in the movie just to get another character from the Marvel Universe shoved into one of these things. Getting to, so you have the chase sequence in the street, which I thought was great, and the convoy sequence. I thought all that looked great. That was a really fun action sequence. You have the one scene where Cable shows up, and your mileage may vary with how funny the baby, the baby dick sequence was, but but it's there for everyone to talk and join forces against the greater enemy, essentially, which is established at this point as Russell.
And I would actually argue that whole sequence goes on about a minute too long. There was some editing of that should have been done. No,
I don't disagree with you. You're saying a minute. I would have gone 5 minutes too long. Jesus, that went on forever. But I think the final act more than makes up for it. I loved the final act. I thought it was great. I thought it was the pairing up of fighters, the arrival of Colossus, Deadpool deciding that the way to reach this kid, was to sacrifice himself, and then essentially martyr himself for this child, so that he gets a grip and comes back to reality and realizes that deep inside of all that scarring and torturing, he is a good boy. Okay, cool. I was good with all of that. The gag with him dying and not dying and it taking forever for him to die, again.
I mean, it's a direct reference to the fact that death scenes in movies always take forever.
It is, but even then, it was a little long in the tooth. It just went on forever.
I mean, that's my biggest gripe with that scene. I get the trope you're playing on, but when the average death scene lasts, 4 minutes, and you stretch this to 8, you're actually just punishing your audience. It stopped being funny about 6 minutes. And they just, again, if they doubled the amount of time it takes to normally kill a character in those sequences, they needed to have cut about 2 minutes off of that. It got to the point where, with a lot of this, where the writers were like, well, people are going to laugh at this, so we can go overboard. And there was no sense of editing. It feels like there were whole sequences where they just had a bunch of jokes they wanted to make sure got in the film.
Yeah, this was the everyone take a drink. This was the equivalent of two really, really good athletic gymnastic type workers where there's no flow to the match at all. There's no psychology, but they both have to get all their shit in. So it's it's just one long series of flips and flippity-doos and crashes through tables, and the table's on fire, and and by the end of it, boy, were you entertained, but it's exhausting, and you're not entirely sure what the point of any of it was. Which takes away from a lot of the stuff that I like. See, for me, I to sum up my feelings on this movie, and I want to get to the after credit scenes because they both were funny and bothered me at the same time. Well, one thing bothered me. So, at the conclusion of the movie, Deadpool is redeemed, Russell is redeemed. Deadpool finds that the meaning of life is family, not necessarily Vanessa, which I thought was a good way to end the movie, and I thought a good conclusion to come to. Cable sacrifices being with his family again to be a part of this family because he feels like, for whatever the reasons are, he's needed here now. I guess because he knows that humanity's going to fall off a cliff, and he figures maybe I can do something to stop that.
They really, if he's going to sacrifice going back and being with his family, the expressly stated reason for him being here in the first place, they really needed to flesh that out in some way.
They did. They rushed through it. I'm wondering if they're going to deal with it in a later movie, or it was just it's enough to. The fact that he saved Deadpool inferred enough. Which again, we've talked about. Does a movie have to explicitly state stuff? Not always. I was willing to accept the reasoning. I would have settled
for a solid inference.
I
would have settled for a good implication.
I mean, I get it. I thought there was enough there for me to just. Don't get me wrong. I questioned it too at first, and I was like, they need a reason for him to stay. Him deciding that Deadpool was worth saving was good enough. He's a hero. Fine. Being a hero and redeeming a good man is worth more than being with your family, at least for now. Fine. Moving on. So up to that point, I looked at Deadpool as an 80% movie. I'm okay with its Rotten Tomato score right now, which I think is sitting at somewhere in the 80s. I have up the critic stuff. I don't have the score in front of me, but
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but I'm in agreement with that.
You had a B. You had it at about a solid B.
Yeah, and it's fine. I thought. I thought structurally, because of what they were working with and the story they wanted to tell, I thought this was a much richer, much more fleshed out story than the first one, which I described earlier as sort of a marketing scheme, more or less. Then, and here's my biggest complaint, then they undercut the entire movie and made me feel like I had wasted 2 hours of my life by saving Vanessa.
Again, the big question is that actually...
That's canon.
Is that just a gag, or is that actually canon?
Every article I've read said that that's canon.
Which I find hilarious, if true.
So, killing the character in Origins was hysterical. I had a good belly laugh at that. Killing Ryan Reynolds with the Green Lantern script, I had a huge belly laugh at that. Saving Vanessa, I was like, what was the point of this entire movie then, if you were going to do that? Her sacrifice is what makes the movie. Or her death, rather, is what makes the movie. There's no movie without it. Why did you bring her back? The whole point of him is he finds a reason to move on without her. Well, you've just brought her back, so everything he learned from this movie is a moot point. And that was frustrating. So those are my thoughts. That's where I stand. I'm going to shut up and give you your, granted you've sort of weighed in here or there, but go ahead and explain why you thought Deadpool 1 was a stronger movie, and then we'll move on to the next thing.
I don't think Deadpool 1 was a stronger movie. I think it was a better written movie, structurally. Deadpool 1 had an incredibly tight, well-refined script. And I tend to prefer that, personally. I think there is enough history regarding the nature of films structured in a fashion similar to that versus films structured like this to say that it's a better written film. Now, again, if you want to argue that this one has deeper themes that it plays with, sure.
And relationships. There needed time to build different relationships in this movie.
I don't know. Maybe you picked up on more of how of the relationships than I did. The only one that I kind of came away feeling like the way the characters interacted was the acrimony between Deadpool and Cable, and a little bit of the Colossus and Deadpool. The others, I was incredibly nonplussed by them.
Okay. I feel like that's personal, but this isn't a therapy session, so go on.
It might be personal. It might be, again, some of this might be me. Some of this might be how the writing, my interaction with that. I don't know. I mean, I don't. We'll be here forever if we try to figure out the degree to which who I am as an individual interacted with the way it was written.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you feel like I'm projecting any of my stuff onto this movie, or do you feel like the arguments I made are valid?
A little, especially kind of when it comes to the... Bear in mind, I will limit this to the actual execution of the Deadpool and Russell relationship. I think you're spot on about Deadpool and Colossus. Again, just completely.
Mm-hmm.
And... I mean, again, if you are projecting onto it, I don't think you have ever overreached necessarily.
Okay. I mean, I ask because I think in an argument over is this better written than the other one really does lie in, well, what is this one about versus the first one? The first one was about Deadpool being a force of nature, and from a meta point of view, whether or not this is a character that's going to work on the big screen and make money for Fox. The second one was about relationships and family, and there are several different relationships at play in the movie that needed to be built up from scratch. And that needs time. Now, the degree to which that was successful, I think, is partially on the writing and partially on the individual, the individual audience member.
Sure. And I don't have a problem with it. Let me be clear. I don't have a problem with a movie being with this being longer than Deadpool. It's not like I'm looking at the runtime and going, "Oh, clearly this is not as well written because it goes longer." I'd like to think that my issues in this case are very specific, and a lot of them are actually structural.
Well, no, we all love Lord of the Rings, and those things are like 9 hours long.
Yeah. Again, when we talked about the first one, I think, again, there was like one scene that I said this shouldn't be here. And I believe it was him and the blind lady arguing about IKEA furniture, which I thought was stupid. Like, right. No, cut this. And again, that was my only complaint structurally about how that was about that film necessarily. Here, you have a few that they seem to drag and go on a bit. You have all the stuff with X-Force. Like, it's just so profoundly stupid. And it goes on forever. You have him and Cable getting on the same page. Everything leading up to him and Cable getting on the same page. I mean, if you seriously reduce the amount of stuff pertaining to X-Force, you could cut that whole bit where he and bartender
Weasel,
whatever, where he and the bartender have this. I mean, I would actually argue you could remove Cable entirely from this film. Again, it seems like the only purpose he serves initially is the impetus for them to actually get out of prison, and in the process of which Deadpool comes to the realization that he needs to help this kid. I mean, really what the realization he comes to is, boy, I'm a bag of shit, I need to be better, which is fine. That's a universally applicable sentiment. But again, like, you could remove him entirely, and you just need a slightly different. You have a slightly different execution of. Deadpool leaves the kid behind when he breaks out of prison. I mean, sure, he's also dealing with his catastrophic depression, but you could have him inadvertently stumble into another group breaking out. He winds up leaving the kid behind. Kid still hooks up with Juggernaut, which is still the actual, the meat of the danger here is the combination of Russell and Juggernaut, which you can still do basically the same way. You just don't need Josh Brolin and Cable. So again, when I mentioned that I feel this isn't as well written, it's that there's a lot of stuff in here that could be trimmed or reworked to. And bear in mind, when I say streamline, I don't mean let's cut 30 minutes of runtime off of this. If the story takes that, if the story is always going to take, if this is 2 hours, 119 minutes? Yeah. If you have a 2-hour story, you have a 2-hour story. Fine. That's not good, bad, or indifferent. The question is whether or not you have reached that in the optimal way, especially for a visual medium like film, and I would argue that while the first Deadpool basically does that, reaches its destination in the optimum manner, whether I liked the movie or not, and for those of you who don't know, I didn't. I did not enjoy the first Deadpool, versus this one, where I think it is very clearly a less optimized film, from a structural, from a narrative flow, from a writing perspective. Now, none of that is to say that this is necessarily a bad movie. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't expect to enjoy it. None of this is appealing to me as a person. That's fine. I don't need the world to appeal to me, nor should it. It would be terrible. I don't need every comedy to be to my tastes. I know what my comedic tastes are. I can discern whether or not I'm going to enjoy something or not, most likely by, previews, what I know of characters and subject material. That's not terribly complicated. I knew I wouldn't enjoy this. Let me rephrase. I knew there was a significant probability I wouldn't enjoy this. Turns out I was right. But I don't think this is a bad movie. I would probably go a little bit lower than Mark in my overall assessment. But a C-ish, again, like out of 10, 7. Somewhere between 6 and 7, somewhere in that range is probably fair. Which is still above 50%. It's still a metaphorically or literally, in some instances, passing grade. Not the worst movie I've seen all year. Won't be the worst movie I see all year. Might be the movie I enjoyed the least, but that's on me, not the film.
All right. So there you have it. 6 or 7 from Robert, 7, 8 from me. It's there was a lot.
Really, again, let me say this. I said the same thing about the first one. It's a comedy before it is anything else.
It's a parody.
Sure, but parodies are almost universally comedies.
Sure, but I mean, it's more correct to say it's a parody.
Okay.
I don't think these films work unless you watch them from the frame that they are parodies of the superhero genre. Otherwise,
they don't work nearly as well.
No.
The point being, if the comedic sensibilities put forth, and again, even if you want to style it as a parody rather than a comedy, if the comedic sensibilities that they utilize are to your comedic tastes, you will more than likely enjoy this. You will laugh, you will have a good time. If they are not to your comedic sensibilities, you will not enjoy them. These are not to my comedic sensibilities. I can appreciate elements of what they were trying to do. I can appreciate the themes they tried to touch on. But at the end of the day, if I don't laugh at a movie that is supposed to make me laugh, and again, bear in mind, when I say supposed to, this is billed to a wider audience. Millions of people thought this was hilarious.
I was one of them.
Sure. Again, the guy behind me wouldn't shut up. Two of the people in front of me wouldn't shut up either. I hate people so much. But anyway, my misanthropy notwithstanding, if you laughed at the first one, you will laugh at this one, and you will have a good time. Go, have fun, enjoy it. Godspeed and party on. I'm not here to critique your comedic sensibilities or your what you enjoy in life. If it's legal and if said law is reasonable, if you're not hurting anyone else, whatever. I don't especially care.
Your point.
Hang on. You interrupted me, so now I have to find it again. Oh, yeah, sorry. Because I said this about the first one. Assessment of the overall quality of the film is largely immaterial in the sense that it's meant to be funny. If you think it's funny, you will enjoy it. If you do not think it's funny, you won't. If you like and I can say with a fair degree of certainty, if you laughed at the first one, you will laugh at this one and you will have a good time. If you didn't, you won't. That's kind of the sum total of it. Mark did in both instances. I didn't in both instances. I'm clearly in the minority when it comes to this, but again, so what? If you think you'll enjoy it, you probably will. Go, have fun.
All right. With that, I don't feel the need to belabor the point, especially given some of the personal stuff I mentioned earlier. So, here we go. Here comes the money. Nope, damn it. Wrong one. Take 2. Here comes the money.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, 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 money.
Dollar, dollar. Dollar, dollar.
Alrighty. On a budget of a mere $110 million, this thing worldwide as of... What?
Sorry, I will look this up because it's going to bother me now.
What?
The actual budget for the first Deadpool movie.
Oh, good grief. Okay.
I'll look it up. Worry about it.
Terrific. Worldwide...
Yeah, first we're at the budget of $58 million. We are like double the first budget.
Well,
right.
There's more mainstream actors in this, and the longer fight sequences.
The CGI's better.
Yeah. The Juggernaut looked a little awkward.
They're Colossus, but they didn't look necessarily more or less awkward than they did the first time. The major action sequences looked a lot better. Like the two ones that killed me in the first one were the scene where he gets the scene in that facility when he fights naked and gets like impaled and left for dead. It looked awful, and then the final one with all the falling cars on the aircraft carrier, just ugh.
Worldwide, as of this recording, the movie has made $312 million, so it's already profitable for Fox, almost Disney. I would imagine it gets pretty high. I'm guessing it'll end its run about $700 to $800 million. The problem with this is that it's running into a fairly crowded field of movies. Next week is Solo, and despite all odds, that's actually critically it's around 70% on Rotten Tomatoes, but I think its monetary projections are looking pretty good. This might
There's a
actually
bunch of people whose religion is Star Wars and who will think that they have to see this. Now, what kind of legs it has is an entirely different subject, but it's going to open relatively big.
So for the next couple of weeks, it's really going to be a fight between Solo and Deadpool. I mean, June 1st, the only thing that I saw that was worth a shit was Action Point, and that's really not going to cut too much into either one of those movies. And then
I don't know. It's meant to just be a comedy. And if you've already seen and laughed at Deadpool, you would
yeah, but I mean, is Johnny Knoxville still a thing?
If this were another instance of Jackass, I'd say that's more of an issue than when they actually make some loose attempt at putting a movie together.
Then you have
Bad Grandpa was financially successful despite being awful.
But it's financially successful and deeply cutting into Deadpool and Solo, I think, is where we're at. And I'm not entirely convinced it will.
It has more of a chance to cut into Deadpool because they're both, again, meant to be comedies.
Mm-hmm.
Than it does cutting into Solo, which is whatever it winds up being.
Anyway, so it's got a 2-week run of, maybe nothing cuts into them, maybe they don't. But again, it's stiff competition. Then, of course, you saw the Avengers out there, which is still making money, and set to go over $1 billion, I believe.
We'll still be making money 6 weeks from now.
Ocean's 8 comes out June 8th. I don't think that cuts into either one of these. I don't think the audience for that. The audience for that essentially went with their boyfriend to go see Deadpool and will go with their boyfriend to go see Solo. But I don't think the majority of people going to see Ocean's 8 would have gone to see Deadpool or Solo regardless. And then after that, you've got a steady run of pretty large films. You've got The Incredibles 2, Pixar. That's probably going to make $1 billion. You have Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. I don't think it makes as much as the first Jurassic World, but it probably does well. I mean, dinosaurs seem to bring people
if
to
anything,
movies.
we've established the fact that for these nostalgia films that are meant to reinvigorate franchises, the first one does great because it's nothing but a retread of a previously successful film. And then once they actually try to make a different or interesting film out of it, everyone throws a hissy fit.
Then we break for a week. I don't believe there's anything coming out the next week that's worth the shit. Then you have Ant-Man and the Wasp. You have Hotel Transylvania and Skyscraper in the same week. And then 2 weeks later, you have Mission Impossible. So, again, the whole point of me...
Is it just me or does that look like ass? I mean, seriously, I've seen that trailer a bunch of times now, and I watch it and just kind of go, man, why are we still making these?
Well, I think why are we still making these versus this looks like ass are two different issues. But
okay, this looks like ass, and we're still making these.
I definitely I don't know if I agree with the first one, but why are we still making these? Yeah. After he hung off a plane, I don't know where you go as far as look. I do my own stunts, and I'm 5', and I'm 5'1". Anywho,
hey, Henry Cavill's going to make me look like even more of a midget because Henry Cavill is a large man.
Yeah, he is. Anywho, the point of me bringing up the movie calendars for June and July that there's plenty of stiff competition that can easily cut into Deadpool and Solo, and they're cutting into each other. So, will Deadpool make nearly as much money as if it had a run of a few weeks where there was nothing? Probably not. I think, like I said, I think this thing dies in the 600, 700 million area. Still profitable. Still, it still looks good on the balance sheets for Fox as as they go through their merger process, and they will. Anyone who thinks Comcast is going to win that battle is sadly mistaken. Possibly delusional.
It's weird because actually, Comcast isn't bidding for the same thing.
What are they bidding for?
Oh, I had a friend who explained this to me. I'm trying to remember. What Comcast is bidding on, if that goes through, the way like Universal and Comcast would wind up getting rid of some of the intellectual properties or whatnot that they would be liquidating in order to make that happen would potentially prevent the Fox merger from going through as creating too much of a monopoly or an unfair business practice.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird. It's not like they're bidding for the same thing. It's this thing can directly affect this other thing.
Well, that's the thing. The Disney's looking for the content. For their streaming service. For a number of purposes. We've covered all this already, but they're not necessarily looking for, I think, any more distribution channels. They have a distribution channel that they're trying to pump up. For the weekend of May 18th through the 20th, Deadpool dethroned the Avengers. The Avengers went on a three-week run, which, of course, why wouldn't they? Deadpool was the number one movie of the weekend.
Still came in at number 2, if memory serves.
Yep. Avengers went from 1 to 2. Book Club, which is you've seen the 50 Shades Freed movie. Now watch a movie about old women who talk about the book. Book Club debuted at number 3. Life of the Party with Michelle.
I hate everyone who saw that.
With Michelle McCarthy fell from 2 to 4. Breaking In, which is the movie where you have the black mom who goes to a house that was left to her by her father, and people try to break into the house, and this is an attempt to turn this woman into some sort of action hero, and I don't think it worked very well. That fell from 3 to 5. Show Dogs debuted at number 6, which I believe is an animated feature. Overboard fell from 4 to 7. A Quiet Place, which was the number one weekend for 2 weekends, not in a row though, fell from 5 to 8. Rampage, still kicking, still successful, fell from 7 to 9. Super Troopers rose from 14 to 10. I Feel Pretty with, as one of my friends called her, Potato Face, Amy Schumer, poor Amy Schumer, fell from 6 to 11. RBG 10 to 12. Black Panther is still in the top 20, folks. It fell from 9 to 13. Tully 8 to 14. Disobedience 19 to 15. Pope Francis debuted at 16. And Blockers with John Cena fell from 12 to 17. Ready Player One, which is a big hit for Warner Brothers, by the way, fell from 16 to 18. Isle of Dogs, the new Wes Anderson movie, fell from 13 to 19. And for its second week in a row, Sherlock Gnomes is at number 20.
Don't say that movie.
My kids did. I haven't seen it. I'm not going to.
Why would you let the... No. Let me rephrase.
Do we need to do this again?
No. This is actually not one of those I'm tempted to call child services over you, like, letting them watch. This is just a bad movie, but kids watch bad movies all the time. Fine. Whatever.
So, I'm looking at the worldwide box offices, right? Number ones for the year. I just want to read the past 10 years. So, from 2008 till 2018, where things stand right now. 2008, The Dark Knight, Batman, comic book movie. 2009, Avatar, okay, original science fiction.
I would seriously question your categorization of that as science fiction, but I don't want to get into that debate.
Okay, action adventure.
All right.
Toy Story 3, animated, Disney. 2011, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. High fantasy novel adaptation. 2012, Marvel, The Avengers, comic book. 2013, Frozen, animated, Disney. 2014, Transformers, Age of Extinction, based on a toy.
Double ugh.
2015...
That was a horrible couple of years. To go from Frozen, which is a terrible movie, You know it is. Catchy songs, terrible movie. To Age of Extinction, which is just cinematic sputum.
I'm not doing this again with you. Star Wars: The Force Awakens, 2015. Captain America: Civil War, 2016. Again, comic Disney. Star Wars again, 2017. Avengers, again a comic book. It's incredible what's making the #1 movie of the year. And every single one of these from 2008 and on has made more than $1 billion, in some cases two. Just thought I'd share that.
All right.
We like what we like in this world. All right. Right now, the worldwide goes like this. Again, Avengers is #1, Black Panther #2. They're the only two movies that have crossed 600 million, by the way. I mean, well crossed.
They're both double that, but
yeah, I was going to say, and they've doubled it, in some cases more so. But I just there's such a drop off between Black Panther and Operation Red Sea, which is currently sitting at 579 million. That's a foreign film. Ready Player One is the highest worldwide release in terms of ticket sales that isn't a foreign film. So congratulations, Warner Brothers. Your one hit this year is so far Ready Player One. Detective Chinatown, again, foreign film, is sitting at #5. Rampage, despite all odds, despite the critics hating it, on its $120 million budget, is currently sitting at $407 million. Robert Winfrey, people went to go see Rampage. Can you believe that?
Yes, because The Rock stars in it. People see The Rock. Like, Skyscraper's going to do relatively well.
Relatively.
It'll be profitable.
At Die Hard with one leg. Coming in at #7.
To be fair, it would be the best Die Hard movie since the original. Especially the best Die Hard movie in the Die Hard franchise.
Fair enough.
The best competition for as far as Die Hard movies goes over the last 7 to 8 years was Olympus Has Fallen.
So Universal has been stiff competition for Disney, and probably the only stiff competition for Disney over the last couple of years. Its highest grossing movie so far, and again, Jurassic World, I'm sure will unseat this, but its highest grossing movie so far this year, its best movie, its most successful movie so far this year, 50 Shades Freed.
They deserve to fail miserably for that.
Monster Hunt 2, again, another foreign film, 361 million. Peter Rabbit, Sony's only successful movie this year, though that's okay. They'll put out another Jumanji movie, it'll be fine. At 335 million.
No, they're banking hard on Venom.
Ugh. That's one of those movies where I'm gonna go see it because I go see all the comic book movies. But God, that looks terrible. And if I didn't do a podcast, I wouldn't go see it. It looks that bad.
Mark, you know what movies I call those?
What?
That circumstance you find yourself in about Venom.
Yeah.
That's my weekly life.
Yeah, it is. And Deadpool debuts in the top 10. It's Fox's most successful movie this year. Which, again, it doesn't matter. Fox is about to become part of Disney, but still. Deadpool debuted in the top 10 with $312 million, as I said earlier. So, rounding out the top 20, you've got A Quiet Place, Pacific Rim, Maze Runner, Tomb Raider, Paddington, Insidious, Red Sparrow, Reese Witherspoon Turns into Lettuce, and The Commuter and Game Night. So there you have it.
Not a really good year on balance so far.
No. Yeah, Disney and Warner Brothers are actually kicking ass. They own the top 6 spot, almost the entire top 6 spots. And again, with Disney, it's Marvel is what's doing it for them. Marvel has the top 2 spots, then a foreign film, and then Warner Brothers has the next 3 with Ready Player One, Detective Chinatown, and Rampage. And then after that, it's a hodgepodge. Just to kind of show you where we are right now, as far as studio market share, according to Box Office Mojo, Disney's in the lead with 33.5% market share, with only 3 movies released in 2018. That's just fucking sad, dude.
Yes, it is.
That's ridiculous. 20th Century Fox, again, a division of Disney at this point, with 5 movies in 2018, has 11.8% of market share. Coming in at a...
So Disney has almost 3 times more market share than the next closest competitor.
Which they're about to own, yeah.
Yeah.
But the same could be said for Warner Brothers, which is just shy of the second place at 11.4% market share, with 11 movies in 2018. Strangely enough, in the 4th spot is Sony, with 8.9, Universal 8.7, Paramount, which will soon be a division of Disney, at 6%, Lionsgate at 3.8, STX Entertainment at 2.6, Fox Searchlight at 2.4, and finally Roadside Attraction rounds out your top 10 at 2.2% market share with 5 movies in 2018. Disney owns your life.
If you choose to let them.
All right. With that said, Robert Winfrey, I have a question.
Am I ready?
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Meg Downey of comicbookresources.com says, it's clearly a stab at recreating grittier, more emotionally fraught origin story moments that Deadpool 1 certainly didn't shy away from, but this time it feels like the movie is trying to punch way, way above its weight class.
I'm not sure I agree with that. I mean, that's an incredibly convoluted way to structure that sequence of sentences anyway. I mean, it grew as a film from an incredibly narrow film to a slightly more expansive one. I fail to see that it's necessarily trying to punch above its weight. It's experimenting with a different take on material. That's, again, the degree to which it's successful, I think, has very little to do with the fact that it expands from being a simplistic revenge story. I mean, if you want a series of movies that are nothing but basically simplistic revenge stories and someone murdering people, you know, you have John Wick. And don't get me wrong, there's certainly a lot of enjoyment to be had, but I don't think he's out of his depth here yet.
Hannah Woodhead of Little White Lies says, wants so badly to be something more interesting than it really is.
No, it really doesn't. Like, I mean, really, if you want to throw a gripe at, and bear in mind, I think this is a gripe you can throw at the movie, it's that it's still dealing with incredibly simplistic material. I mean, deeper themes, but we're not dealing with complexity here. It's not trying to be more interesting than it is. It's perfectly content to poke fun at the genre and make you laugh along the way.
K. Austin Collins of Vanity Fair. Unfortunately, 2 movies in, the Deadpool franchise has not only already run out of jokes, it's become everything it was supposed to hate.
Okay. First of all, it doesn't hate these things. Existing to, again, parody, to expose, does not mean you hate something. I mean, really, the fact that you conflate the two is endemic of a larger problem with society and societal thinking, actually, at the moment, is that if I disagree with you, I must hate you. No. If you want to poke fun at the superhero genre, that doesn't mean you hate it. Especially if you happen to be, a superhero franchise. As for the jokes, I mean, again, I didn't laugh. Doesn't mean that there weren't people laughing. That's not the same thing.
So remember how I spent, a good first hour of this review referring to the relationships and the themes and the structure of the plot and everything? Remember all that?
Such as you experienced them and had your perspective, yes.
Josh Spiegel of Slash Film. Much like its predecessor, Deadpool 2 is less a movie than a smirky, feature-length meme generator.
Yeah, you just completely missed the point. That's an accurate discussion of the first film in many respects. Really not so much here. They go out of their way to try and do more than just have Deadpool monologue at the camera. I mean, to be fair, they could have actually used at least one of those in this movie instead of just a couple of asides, because, I mean, there's that whole sequence on the bridge in the first one where he just strictly talks to the audience. That's entirely absent from this one.
Barry Hertz, I bet he does, of Globe and Mail, top critic. A movie that feels scribbled in pencil, crayon, drenched in Jolt Cola, and coated with the dust of 1,000 discarded bags of flamin' hot Cheetos. As it is, Deadpool 2 is a film that is merely aggressively aggressive.
No. Like, this isn't even that aggressive of a film. I had a major complaint with the lack of bloodshed. Like, I'm a gorehound by nature, so your individual mileage may vary, but I wanted more. Like, there's not enough death in this for me, even just death of side characters. You have that bit in the beginning when he is explaining some of his missions. Then he shoots one guy. And there's, like, not a whole lot after that, up until, like, Juggernaut tears him in half, which was cool, but I'm not entirely sure you can even describe this as aggressively aggressive. Its action set pieces are actually few and far between, and it could, to my estimation, use more violence and bloodshed than we got in this.
Alex Deneau of Trespass. Deadpool 2 is everything that is supposed to rail against. It is supposed to rail against. A generic comic book movie that is only a step above the lesser entries in the Marvel-Fox continuum.
This is clearly someone who does not actually understand parody and satire.
Is he comparing this to Fox? Is he comparing this to the last Fan 4 stick?
I don't know. This is not a well-reasoned point. It's not a legitimate argument. It's again, like, for some reason, and I don't know who to blame for this culturally, the ability to actually understand subtlety in satire has evaporated.
Well, I think the Blank movie series didn't help that.
They didn't help anything. The movies are a blight.
Yeah, they are. Jake Cole, Slant Magazine. Deadpool 2 muddles the distinction between parodying comic book movie conventions and perfunctorily adhering to them.
Well, yeah, because it's parodying them without being over the top about it. Okay. You like, the best example of parody for stuff like this actually tends to come from Mel Brooks. Are you people unfamiliar with his work?
That's the thing, I don't think Mel Brooks would sell today. I honestly, I think if he,
which is part of the problem, mind you, and I don't disagree with you.
I think if you tried to make, History of the World Part 1 today, people wouldn't get it.
You can't even make Young Frankenstein today. I love that movie. I mean, that's actually my favorite Mel Brooks movie.
You know what it reminds me of? Somebody compared Young Frankenstein to Robin Hood Men in Tights, specifically the hump and the mole. The hump keeps moving, and it's clear that the characters recognize that the hump keeps moving, but they don't directly call it out because subtlety is a thing, and subtlety can be funny. Years later, he does the same gag with the mole in Robin Hood Men in Tights, Prince John's mole. And they directly call it out.
Over and over and over. Yeah, it's...
Yeah.
Again, we've now reached the point where apparently Deadpool is too subtle for some critics. Woe betide the perspective of critical analysis when Deadpool is too subtle for you bunch of morons.
Mara Reinstein of U.S. Weekly, top critic. In 2 years, Deadpool has gone from the scrappy class clown to the annoying wise ass in the back of the room, spewing crude insults to amuse himself.
That's all he was to begin with. Like, I like, really, the humor is not any different from 1 to 2. The execution of the humor is not even all that different from 1 to 2.
So,
Maybe you should rewatch the first one, see if your perspective may have been skewed. Like,
I want to read this next one, and I want to remind everyone that this is a top critic. Okay, this is somebody paid to do a job. Someone that Rotten Tomato considered, best in show. Okay, best of the best. Katie Walsh of the Tribune News Service. Deadpool 2 is annoying and bad.
Okay. I might be with you for the first half of that sentence. Again, didn't care for it. I might be with you for that. But then you somehow made the leap to, I was annoyed by this, and to the extent that annoyance can be a universal trait, this is annoying. Okay. Again, I can see the argument. It's annoying and bad. Would you care to actually defend that? Who chose that? Like, you wrote that? And then someone chose that as your hook?
With nothing else to give it any kind of context. Alan Scherstuhl, The Village Voice, top critic. Rather than face its own moral incoherence, Deadpool 2 blinks. I'd like to follow that up with this one. Glenn Weldon, NPR, top critic. It's Family Guy, the movie.
Okay. Let's do a couple of things here. One, Deadpool is not a moral character. He goes around essentially indiscriminately murdering people because he believes that he's in a comic book or a movie. There is no morality there. There's deliberately no morality there. I mean, that's actually the point in many respects. And to say that this is Family Guy the movie, no. First of all, there's no cutaway gags in this movie. Second of all, just because both are at their baseline crude and deliberately offensive does not mean that they're similar beyond that. It's, again, like that doesn't hold up. Oh, no, this isn't Family Guy the movie. There are Family Guy movies. They mostly suck. Because, Family Guy kind of sucks. But this has nothing in common with Family Guy beyond loosely starting out as something to satirize and parody and being, again, baseline crude in their humor. That does not mean they're the same thing at all.
Mary Ann Johansson, a flick philosopher. This is the death of the comic book movie.
Oh, shut up.
I'm going to say Avengers disagrees with you. Or it should be. The savage and humane nihilism here says, yup, comic haters are right. This is dangerous nonsense with no morality or redeeming qualities.
No. Deadpool is an amoral character. That is not the same as saying comics are. I mean, you're drawing false equivalency. You might as well say that because Hitler wrote a book, all books are bad.
Well, books are for burning.
You make my point. Thank you.
Tony Medley
that just doesn't even make sense.
Tony,
never mind.
Tony Medley of the Tulican Times. This satire mocks the superhero genre I loathe, but it is just a video game gone wild, full of irresponsible violence without consequence. Just because it mocks Codswallop does not mean that it is not Codswallop itself.
I mean, if I'd like to believe that this guy was just using Codswallop on his own merit, because it's a great word, but I'm pretty sure he only chose to use it because he was reminded of its existence by this movie. So congratulations, this movie actually has a more usefully expansive vocabulary than you do, you derivative hack. Second, okay, you hate superhero movies, so what? Like, I dislike a lot of things. You're a critic. Your job is to minimize that as much as possible and discuss things as such.
Robert
I hate
Winfrey.
kids. You're not gonna, that doesn't necessarily mean I go around saying all children should die.
I hope not. I love my kids, even when they're misbehaving. Robert Winfrey's favorite critic. God, I'm so tired. Robert Winfrey's favorite critic, Leonard Maltin of LeonardMaltin.com.
I hate this guy so much.
Nearly everything about the original Deadpool was fresh and funny, from the opening credits to the parody of Marvel movie finales. Deadpool 2 suffers the fate of so many sequels. We've seen its best ideas before.
Again, you are completely ignoring some of the underlying themes that this movie is deliberately going for. To the extent that, yeah, they're doing the same gags for, the opening credits or the... I mean, even they even do a slightly different take on that because they're deliberately parodying, again, James Bond intros.
They were also addressing killing Vanessa in the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, it's... is it a lot of the same from the first Deadpool? Sure, in some respects. It's the same character, same world. How much more different do you want?
Well, that was the thing. The first gag was, oh look, here's a bunch of movie tropes, as seen by caricatures. A CGI character, an angsty teenager, Hollywood's perfect idiot. Okay, great. So we have all those. This one didn't do that. This one was the credits were were the audience's reaction to killing Vanessa put on screen. It was a different joke.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to do two more of these. This one I'm reading just because it made me laugh. Matthew Bond of the Daily Mail UK. I got confused and then bored by a story that ties this franchise ever closer to the X-Men. I don't know what movie he watched.
I mean, as someone who didn't like the movie, and again, found it meandering in places, I can loosely understand boredom, but of course they're trying to tie it into the X-Men franchise. He's a mutant! Deadpool's a member of the X-Men universe and always has been. Oh, they're trying to tie him into the X-Men universe because he freaking belongs there. What's the matter with you people? Oh boy, I was all for that, the Hobbit movie, but then they just kept shoehorning in all these Lord of the Rings references. I'll piss off.
All right, I gotta find the message I sent you for this last one, and then we're done.
I believe it was A.O. Scott of the New York Times.
I got it. Give me a second. You like the little emoji
This
I put?
one.
Do you like the emoji I put on there for you?
No, I like nothing about that.
A.O. Scott of the New York Times, top critic. What drives this franchise? What drives this franchise is the same force that drives so much culture and politics right now: the self-pity of a white man with a relentless need to be the center of attention.
I mean, you write for the New York Times. They wouldn't have cared if you just said Deadpool is Trump. They really wouldn't have, which is clearly all you're getting at. Because rather than actually talk about the movie on its own terms, or even the terms as it pertains to film generally, we must shoehorn culture war and my political perspective into talking about freaking Deadpool.
And on that note, just to be clear, it was 83%.
Who pays that man? Do not pay that man anymore.
Deadpool scored an 83% overall rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and it has an audience score of 86%. So there you go. All right, next week we do Solo,
Okay.
the movie that Ron Howard had to save. It actually might make money despite having to be shot twice. So
that would be a mild shock if they literally had to spend the money to shoot this thing twice.
Well, Disney's got money to burn at this point, so I guess it doesn't matter. So anyway, Damn You Hollywood.
Okay, so if all the profits from Avengers Infinity War, we're going to subsidize a crappy Star Wars spinoff.
They still got money left over from The Last Jedi. All right. As I said, Damn You Hollywood comes back next week for a solo. Then the week after that, we take a break.
And Mark will yell at me for not liking Star Wars.
I
think if we take every negative thing you've said about me in aggregate over the Star Wars franchise, I am a heartless, brainless, soulless, humorless automaton.
Yeah, seems legit. I don't yell at you. I haven't yelled at you since the first Deadpool, which, okay, granted, I yelled at you then. But I don't think I've yelled at you since. I think I've been reasonably, you've insulted me more times than I've yelled at you, asshole. So we're taking 2 weeks
because you yell at me.
So we're taking 2 weeks off, again, because there's nothing worth reviewing here on Damn You Hollywood, and I have other stuff to do. So instead, there'll be an on-trial on the June 5th, and then we'll be doing a TV party tonight for Krypton Season 1, which I believe ends this week. We'll get to it on June 12th, and then we're back for a couple of shows.
It doesn't end. It just takes a hiatus while they film the next season. I would rather it ended.
We'll be reviewing Pixar's The Incredibles 2 on June 19th.
Still the best 2 Fantastic Four movies ever to see the light of day. Or ever to be shot.
We'll be reviewing Jurassic World on June 26th. That's Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom.
Okay, you cannot seriously have any hope left for this movie, do you?
What, Jurassic World? No, I don't even look forward to seeing it.
But we don't then.
Nope, it's on the schedule. Now,
Nah. You control the schedule. Take it off.
No, I can't. I mustn't. So...
I don't want to set the precedent of Robert actually bringing up a valid point about a movie neither of us are excited about.
Nah, exactly. I have a job to do, and I'm going to do it. July 3rd, there won't be a Damn You Hollywood.
They can't kill themselves.
But Robert Winfrey will be on TV Party tonight to discuss Luke Cage Season 2, more concerts, MOAR, more concerts.
I might not see that, to be fair.
Oh, yes, you will.
I might not.
Then
There's really only so much I can take.
Then we'll be back for Ant-Man and the Wasp, then Skyscraper, then hopefully both Roberts, but definitely one Robert, will be on for Voltron Season 5 and, I think, Season 5 and 6? Yeah, Season 5. We weren't able to get to Season 5 when it was new, and by this point Season 6 will have come out. So we'll do both Season 5 and Season 6, which actually amounts to about 12 or 13 episodes on July 24th. Then Mission Impossible, July 31st.
Seriously, why won't that franchise die?
Then Christopher Robin on August 7th.
And then I will want to die watching it.
And
not negatively, mind you.
And then after some deliberation, our last movie of the summer blockbuster season will be The Meg, which is about the giant prehistoric shark that kills people. And then our summer wrap-up show, our annual summer wrap-up show, will be August 21st. And then we break again for several weeks, I think. Yeah, we don't come back until September 18th. We have one Damn You Hollywood in the entire month of September, and it's for The Predator.
Which looks like just straight the worst.
But for those of you who enjoyed our discussion of Hannibal Season 1, we're going to get to Hannibal Season 2, October 2nd. Then Venom. 2 weeks later after that, Halloween. And that's enough for now. There'll be more movies as we get closer to the holiday season, but that's pretty much our calendar for the time being. That's what we got going on. In the meantime, in the green time...
Man, September does suck.
Yeah, my September calendar just completely fell apart. I had to fill it up with TV parties and trials.
Somewhat ironically, the best looking movie based on previews is the house with a clock in its walls. Which is a Jack Black and Kate Blanchett starring vehicle. It's a horror fantasy.
So if you're looking for, if you're just tuning into the show, you don't know much about the Rattle Legend Broadcasting Network, here's what you've missed so far. We reviewed The Avengers. We had on some guests for that. We had on Alexis Haina and our friend David Wright from our Canada office. We did an on-trial for Battleship. Sean Comer and I discussed the Arrow series on the CW. specifically Season 6, but we talked about the franchise as a whole. And we've also, we did comic book reviews for Thanos Rising, He-Man Thundercats, Green Arrow, The Longbow Hunters, and just released yesterday, Deadpool vs. X-Force. Over on the Metal Hammer of Doom, we reviewed the new Godsmack, the new Monster Magnet, the new Doom Borgia, and tomorrow we'll review the new Five Finger Death Punch. And next week, we've got a whole bunch of Star Wars stuff coming at you. We've got the Han Solo comic that came out, I believe, in 2016. We've got the movie, obviously, that we're going to review. And Galactic Empire actually just released a new album. It's 2, as it's been called. So we're going to review that for you. It's all Star Wars all week long. We've got some...
And I want to die.
We've got some other fun shows. Pat and I did a Remembering Bruno Sammartino show. A couple of us got together to do a commentary on The Last Unicorn! Haggard Unicorn!
Seriously, that traumatized people?
It traumatized me.
I mean, much as we whine about people being overly sensitive nowadays, I mean, come on.
And just added to the calendar, Thursday night, May 24th, us guys are going to get together and discuss the hit show of the season, Cobra Kai, that was released on YouTube Red. We, myself, Pat Mullen, Jesse Starcher, and from our Canada office, Andrew Graham. So that's all this news that's fit to print here in May. We've got some Metal Hammer of Doom extras and some fun commentary. So look for all of that in the archives on Spreaker. For all of however you look at podcasts, listen to podcasts, just type in Radulich, Radulich, hit that subscribe button, and you'll get all the content as it's released. You can also look for a special micro show that we did. We did a commentary on the X-Men video game, the 4-player video game, arcade game. Robert Winfrey was on that. Apparently, it's hilarious. That should be up.
It's really not.
That should be up very soon. All right, go ahead and plug your silly MMA show. That gets all the views, all the listens.
It doesn't. Have you not actually looked at the numbers?
I do.
Because,
I do.
We took a serious hit, that show in particular, when we moved from Blog Talk to Spreaker.
Yeah, it still does better numbers than most of the other shows, though. Especially the live plays.
Well, I mean, we can't actually do that anymore since I don't.
I mean, like
live
people playing it directly off the website versus downloading it.
Well, that's not live play. There are actually people who would listen. We actually would get like 1 or 2 that would just listen to it live every time.
Yeah, well, I don't do live shows anymore. So
I know because it's too much of a pain for you to upload them to YouTube independently. So now I have to record and publish them the other way. So
right.
Now, you're just like constantly killing my audience slowly.
You're fine. Your show does fine. You please.
No.
Please.
To be fair, like it shouldn't do as well as it does.
You please.
I have no earthly idea why people listen.
I'm about to end the show. Please plug your stupid show.
Sundays is usually when they're posted and when we record them. The 411 Ground and Pound radio show. We look into the crazy world of mixed martial arts. This last week we reviewed UFC Fight Night 129, which was a god-awful event. I mean, if you looked up just the straight results, and like, oh, all these finishes. Finishes don't make an event good. There's actually a very specific line of demarcation when that event went to hell. But we reviewed that, and we previewed UFC Fight Night 130, which comes your way next Sunday morning. It is the Stephen Thompson and Darren Till card. I will be covering that in the MMA Zone of 411mania.com, so if you're inclined, stop by, say hello. I'm going to need it. It's not a good card. It's a really good main event, and there's... It's a really good main event. I mean, that's really all I got here. I mean, Dan Kelly's on the prelims, so you got a Dan Kelly fight. Dan Kelly gives hope to all of the old guys out there, including Mark. So you can. So again, this coming Sunday, after that event, actually, not too a few hours after that event wraps up, we will record the next one, which will. So again, this Sunday we will be reviewing that and previewing UFC Fight Night 131. Make sure I have that correct. Yes, that will be Friday the 1st of June. It's that's a sneakily entertaining card, especially the main event. The main event is a bantamweight fight between Jimmy Rivera and Marlon Moraes, which anyone who knows anything about either guy should be really excited for. Gregor Gillespie's fighting. It gets a little thin after that. Jake Ellenberger still has a job. God help us all. Anyway, so you can tune in for our thoughts on fights, our previews, our reviews, and our discussion of MMA and occasionally other combat sports-related news of the week. And again, I don't know. I appreciate everyone who does listen. I've heard significantly better podcasts out there, but I've heard a few worse ones. So thank you for your support and for using us as supplemental listening and knowledge on your MMA fandom. Seriously, there are good ones. Listen to those. Keep listening to mine. But there are ones of better quality. Anything worse than my show, you shouldn't listen to. It's just not worth it.
Terrific. All right.
Feel the same way about the movie review. There's a lot of movie review podcasts, some better than this one. Anything worse than what we do should just die slowly.
I feel like that needs to be put. Mindy, put it on a T-shirt. And with that said, for Robert Winfrey, who quite the salesman. This has been the.
Look, I'm a terrible salesman because I'm honest.
This has been for Robert Winfrey. I'm Mark Rattles. This is Damn You Hollywood. We'll be back next week for Solo. Be well, be safe, and behave.
Required listening with Amazon Music.
Dad music again?
The greatest guitarist of all time.
Wait, who?
Alexa, add this song to a new playlist.
Sure, what's the new playlist name?
Jack's Intro to Classic Rock.
Adding Stepping Stone by Jimi Hendrix to Jack's Intro to Classic Rock playlist.
Amazon Music, the simplest way to listen to the music you and soon he will love. New customers start your 30-day free trial at AmazonMusic.com. Renews automatically, cancel anytime.